Chapter 9. Over the next few months we toured the country. The road rash could never stay in one place for too long. It attracted the wrong kind of attention. The local police were harmless enough, but as the rash's reputation grew, so did the attention it received from the city cops. They figured that if nothing else, it was setting a bad example. If they had any idea of the casualty rate, they'd have closed in on us faster than a chicken runs after someone has shouted Bernard Matthews in its ear. But there was tacit consent among the riders, even Viper, that racing was racing. Grudges would be settled on the open road, nowhere else, and the law authorities were never involved. Within days we moved in convoy from the Sierra Nevada to the long, sandy highways and dunes of the Pacific coast. It was here that the first ever road rash had taken place all those years before, and you could tell that there was something special about the place. It was almost as if this bunch of nomads and speed freaks that I'd joined were coming home. Or maybe it was just me. I don't know. But there was definitely a spooky atmosphere around the place. Slater took time out to surf, while the rest of us made do with riding the concrete waves of the open road. It was also here that I first managed to talk to Natasha on her own. After the race, I needed to loosen up, and I wanted to get a decent look at the ocean. The actual race had just offered glimpses of the sea between mountains, but I'd always felt that there was something magical about the sea, so I decided to cruise out to the ocean. I met Natasha coming in the opposite direction. She'd just been picking up some provisions from the nearest store, about 15 miles north up the highway. We both slowed as we approached each other. She asked where I was going. I told her. "Mind if I tag along?" She smiled. Did I mind? What do you think? After a gentle ride along the highway, we turned off down a side road and found ourselves by the sea. For 2 hours we just sat on the beach next to our bikes and talked, watching the sun go down. It was a special evening for me. I vowed to go back there if I ever came to the Pacific coast again. Next came the long haul up into the mountains to Redwood Forest, popular among the Rashes for the all-night celebrations at Pop's place, a kind of logging cabin bar after the race. This was course number 3, and here Slater was in his element. "Hi, I'm Slater. Fly me," he'd say. I guess it was just his passion for skateboarding getting the better of him, but if there was any jumping to be done, he'd make the most of it. There were jumps and ridges all around the course, and if you caught them right, you could catch some serious air. Of course, he didn't catch it right during the race. I'm sorry if this sounds unsympathetic, but I laugh whenever I think about it. I'd been a steady 3/10 behind him since the start of the race, and had managed to creep a little closer when we came to the ridge, where he'd been practicing his jumps before the race. He'd promised to show me something special. As I sprinted to the top of the hump, I flicked my bike over the brow to catch some extra hang time. I was busy admiring my shadow down below when I saw Slater. He was chasing a car. There was a particularly angry driver shaking his fist at Slater through his back window, while Slater was screaming and shaking his fist at the driver of the car. The car kept on going, leaving Slater to start pegging it down the road after him as fast as his wobbly legs would carry him. "Stop, thief!" screeched a red-faced Slater. "Come back with my bike, you car trailer!" Hey, that was Slater's strongest insult. Give the guy a break. The bike was wedged under the car's radiator and was being shunted down the road at a steady 20 miles per hour. Slater told me afterwards that he'd had to run for 1.5 miles before the bike had slipped from under the car. Everyone teased him mercilessly, but to give him his credit, normally jumps were his specialty. He was the one who taught me to flick my bike left, then right, just on the point or takeoff over the brow of a hill to gain extra height. Before too long I was up there with the birds. The landings tended to hurt a bit, but I guess you don't make omelette without breaking some eggs. There was another way to get lift off. If you veered off the road, then caught a lift from the rocks that lay scattered on the verge. It was dangerous, but judge it right and you could clock yourself some serious airtime. I never risked it back then, but I was convinced that you could clear an oncoming car if you timed it right. But my Shuriken 400 wasn't really up to it. But don't get me wrong, it took corners like a dream, and you could practically race the whole course at maximum revs. But for real daredevil acrobatics, you'd need a bike with a little bit more raw power. After the chill of the mountains came the scorching heat of Palm Desert. This course was tough, and unless you wanted to end up hugging a cactus, and I didn't, you kept your wits about you. Equally tough was the Last Chance Bar, the only oasis for miles. It was certainly no place for a lady. I'd somehow managed to convince an obliging Natasha, so instead of joining the rest of the Rashes, we spent a cosy evening watching the stars come out. Slowly but surely my skills were developing. I'm talking about my motorbike riding, not Natasha. Sewer mind. And although I was starting at the back of the grid, my finishing places slowly but surely crept higher and higher. After 10th at Sierra Nevada, I repeated the performance at Pacific Coast. In the Redwood Forest, I made 8th. Then scorching along the sandy Palm Desert Highway, I finished 6th. You're learning, kid, reckoned Slater. Before too long, you'll be teaching me tricks. Yeah, maybe he was right, but I was more worried about Viper. He hadn't said a word to me after the first race, but I heard that he was out for revenge, and out on the road, I didn't fancy my chances the second time round. The 5th and final course was the Grass Valley. Cross traffic was as much of a problem here as in all the other courses, but I was getting more and more confident. So far I'd managed to avoid the police. And so much for the clairvoyant skills of O'Leary. I'd only wiped out one more time. It was nothing really, just a little misunderstanding between myself, a corner that I wasn't expecting, and a particularly well-built telegraph pole. And Viper had been safely away from me among the leaders. That I hoped to change. Okay, so there were some other riders that I'd learned to stay away from. There was one truly objectionable guy named Biff. Now he was a real pain in the butt. He just couldn't fit enough words about himself into one day. But he was harmless enough, as were the others. You just had to show a little respect. So on the whole, I figured I was doing okay. I'd earned a little money, and so far I hadn't spent any. And of course, Natasha was slowly beginning to warm to me. Just a bit. Where was I? Oh yeah, Grass Valley. You want to know what happened? I came second. Me, player. The guy who's talking to you. You know. Yes, I raced across that finish line behind only one other rider. Shiva. I'd passed Viper without incident early in the race, just a mile from the start line, and then I just kept going. Crazy, eh? Okay, so luck had been on my side. Too many riders had got taken out by the lazy drivers of Grass Valley, and too many had been too preoccupied with smashing the hell out of each other to concentrate on the rest of their opponents. So it had been easy for me to work my way through the rankings until, miraculously, storming out of a big right-hander, I raced past Lester and found myself in second place. I know what you're thinking, even though I found it hard to believe. And here speaks a man who's pretty sure of himself. If I'm honest, I'll have to admit that once I got in second place, that was it. I never came close to Shiva. He was just too quick. But I was proud to be his nearest rival, for that day at least. Natasha was proud of me too. We playfully scrapped for 5th place over about a mile, until I'd managed to pull away from her along a straight. Yeah, I was getting better, and I was learning how to play it rough too. There were 2 ways to take a rival out of a race. First, you could simply barge him off the track or into the path of an oncoming vehicle. But that was dangerous, and I wouldn't recommend it, except as a last resort. Okay, so that's exactly what I'd done to Viper in my first ever race. But I'd been angry, and didn't know better. Just do as I say, not as I do. Okay? Second, you could just use a good old-fashioned boot or fist to get the message across. But even this isn't simple. You can be the best karate expert or boxing champ in the world, but when you're straddling a high-powered motorbike, seemingly with a life of its own, snaking along a twisting country road at 120 miles per hour, your moves are limited. I challenge even Bruce Lee to do any better than the moves I'm going to tell you about. The problem is, you can't take both hands off the handlebars at the same time. Unless you're a lunatic, that is. Okay, so you probably could let go with both hands, but you'd fall off. So you've got to simply whack your opponent with a straight punch, or let fly with a vicious backhander. Both will do the job well. It's all a matter of timing, really. But a badly connected punch won't always send your target sprawling first time. More often than not, he'll flounder around a bit instead of doing the decent thing and falling off, with a good chance of knocking you off your own bike with him. This time I won't say, or her. Even I don't hit women. Besides, if what I'd heard about Natasha was right, women tended to hit back. There was always the chance that your target would start walloping you back. And, well, that's not good news. It wastes time. You can't concentrate on the road. And, perhaps, most importantly, it hurts. Also, any other riders keeping a safe distance behind you will be able to poach a place or two and simply cruise past you. Not to mention the unthinkable possibility that you may come off second best in the fisticuffs and your opponent might actually succeed in knocking you off himself. What I'm trying to say is that it's far better to kick your opponents. It takes less time, you can keep both hands on your bars, and the whole manoeuvre is more likely to succeed. Push your weight towards the back of your bike and call your leg ready to strike. When you draw alongside your opponent, kick like a mule and knock him into tomorrow. I'm just telling you for the record, okay? There's no way you'd catch me mixing it rough. I said there's no way you'd catch me. I didn't say I never did it. After Grass Valley, we returned to Sierra Nevada for the second time that season. I knew the course this time and came in third. We followed the same sequence of courses as before, and through a mixture of skill, bravery, lightning reflexes, and, alright, beginner's luck, I finished in the top 5 in each and every race. I guess it caused a bit of a stir among the organisers. I mean, I've got to hand it to myself. If a rookie Rash was going to take on the cream of the country's rider and start making decent inroads towards winning, then I guess things were too easy. It was then that we heard the news. They decided to lengthen the courses. Instead of approximately 5.5 miles long, they became 7.5. I'd been with Natasha at the time, just saying hello, you understand, and neither of us really knew what to think about the changes. A lot of the riders complained. We were all speed freaks, but we weren't suicide artists. Well, most of us weren't. Like it or get out, was the stonewall answer from the organisation. A few riders quit. They figured that you could only have so much of a good thing. But the rest of us, suckers to our own addictions, Well, we knew that without a regular fix of adrenaline, we would be lost. And rushing was the ultimate. After this sport, everything else in life came a meagre second. Once a rasher, always a rasher. That's what Slater had taught me. So most of us stayed on. Maybe we should have known better. There were more changes to follow. Changes that made what was already a brutal, hard sport even more bloodthirsty. Changes that would claim many lives over the following years. You want to know what happened? Alright, I'll tell you.